Yes, without wasting of time, I would continue with this title. All of you have gone through glaciers and vegetation as an indicator. Hello, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
Yeah. So glaciers and alpine vegetation as an indicators of climate change. This is the topic which actually based on my research work that was carried in my MTech program in IIRS Dehradun. And of course, some of these slides are old one, which I have taken from my own work, just for reference and how the work is carried out. To know that the slides I have taken for reference. This topic is related to climate change, and I thought to relate alpine vegetation and glacial studies as an indicator of climate change over the period of time. Of course, as we know, remote sensing is one of the important tool and has ability to monitor different features on the Earth surface, including glaciers, ice extent, then the snout or terminus position. We can also calculate volume and yes,
No, no, sir. Continue, continue.
okay, volume and other details of the ice cover. As we know, in response to climate change, glaciers are changing rapidly, and this kind of change can be seen through the temporal data that can be available in the form of satellite images. And therefore, the changes which are taking place in the glacial part or in the glacial landscape, these are mainly retreat of snow, retreat of snout, then change in snow cover, area under snow cover, that could be area of snow accumulation and formation of supraglacial lakes. Maybe you are aware. Uh, I'll show you some of the examples of this. Water bodies and change in movement rate. So this kind of details we can find out simply by using temporal multispectral images. Of course, for this, I have used digital elevation model also and MSS data. So glacial landforms and change in geomorphological processes is again one of the important indicators of climatic change. These are the areas with very sensitive to climate change, particularly increasing temperature in such areas. Why I have taken these two parameters, that is also important one. As we know, the ice melts as the temperature of the region increases, and ultimately the milk water or what is the melting water volume increases. Besides this, as the temperature increases, it creates the suitable environmental condition for the growth of plants, particularly grasses and shrubs. So these grasses and shrubs are also indicating the change in suitable temperature condition for the growth. Of course, the duration of grass cover or plant cover, I should use the term vegetation. It is all inclusive, but not, of course, not the tall trees. So you have to uh, think on this. These are the grasses, short grasses, and shrubs. So vegetation cover and its period over the time. The time period after the melting of the ice, that is also important. And these are the indicators which I have used. Vegetation cover increases because of the increase in temperature, and ice cover, or sorry, snow cover, that decreases because of the increase in temperature. So there is indirect and direct relationship between these two and temperature. So let's continue with this discussion. We know this climate change. Okay, this I'll skip. I'll skip some of the things. Right. So the aims and objectives of the study, what we have done, it was to identify the changes which took place in recent past and geological past. And for this, we have used geospatial techniques, including GIS, remote sensing, and GPS. We went to the field, and by using GPS, we have tried to collect certain data of the sites. So these sites were identified on the image, and accordingly, oh, there is some problem. Tushar, password. Hello? Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
There is some extra window has opened. I don't know about the Zoom. I thought I'm minimize it. Okay. Okay. Extra window has opened. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So the objective was to identify the changes which took place because of the change in environmental conditions, and environmental conditions have changed because of the change in climatic parameters, particularly temperature in the Himalayan region. Yes, I'm going to focus only on the second part of the objectives to detect and analyze landform land cover changes in recent past using remote sensing techniques such as NDSI. These are the indices which I have used to identify snow cover, vegetation cover, and water bodies in the study area. Of course, these are also the indices which can be used in different ways. But here, water index I have used to identify supraglacial lakes, NDSI for snow cover, and NDVI, of course, increasing vegetation cover. Rest of the things like volume and velocity, I will not discuss here. That was also a part of the study. But if the time permits, definitely I'll talk about that. Basically, this work was done by using remote sensing data, and remote sensing data helped me a lot because for the earlier scenarios, we can use remote sensing data since its availability, and I tried to take the data from 1978, but the resolution of 78 image did not allow me to map certain areas because these are the areas which are having hindrance of shades like shadows, shadows of the mountain ranges, and the details of the glaciers could not be identified. So I have not used that one, but I tried to use other images of Landsat. So this is the study area for the benefit of, I don't know whether the participants are from uh, non-geography subjects. For the benefit of these participants, I have shown this particular study area. It is the source region of Alaknanda River, which is having two main valley glaciers. These are the Satopant and Bhagirath Khadak. And these valley glaciers are separated by Balakund range, Balakund mountain peak. And this particular area is the source of Alaknanda. And after melting of the ice, the Alaknanda is fed by the water of glacial melt. This is very close to Badrinath and the place called Bana, which is the uh, smallest and farthest village in that valley. So this is a Survey of India topographic map, and you can get an idea. Are you able to see this? The cursor, I'm moving the cursor.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. This is the area. This is one of the Bhagirath Khada Glacier, and this is Satopant Glacier. I have just taken only the part which covers maximum of the glacier. So this Survey of India topo sheet is used to identify uh, supraglacial lakes, which is there on the glacial lakes are there on the Valley Glacier. This part I have drawn that these are all Valley glaciers. You can clearly see, and this part, this is Balakund range that separates both of these glaciers. And on the Valley Glacier itself, you will find the dots, which are indicating the supraglacial lakes. Okay, so let's move ahead. Yes, this is what is the study area. As I told you, the here towards the east, just above the Lizen, on the right hand side, there is a Badrinath shrine. All of you are aware of this. So from Badrinath, we have to walk down to assess these snout and glaciers. So this is a Google image. I have just, for your reference, I have just drawn the shape file in the form of KML file. So you can also do such kind of thing for your study area. Simply identify the basic or study area. You can use the relief relief aspect in Google Earth and simply go for drawing a polygon over the Google Earth. And from there, you can export KML as the study area shape file. Okay, this is same thing. The difference is this is inverted image. Why I have inverted it? Even you can invert Google Earth, take the north towards the south, and you will get the actual view of the landscape. That means the mountain ranges will be seen as ranges, mountain ranges, and the glaciers will be in the valley. So this is the deeper part. The glaciers are in the deep. If I go in the previous slide, yeah, the glaciers, it is illusion kind of thing. Glaciers are higher and the mountain ranges are lower. So such kind of difference you'll get. So while marking the study area, you have to use this technique. This is very simple. Simply invert the image and you'll be able to see 3D of your study area. So these are basic requirements. For example, slope map, then aspect map, to understand the details, and even for interpretation of the images, it is quite required. Interpretation of study area. Most of the times, students they do slope map just for the sake of doing something. But remember that in climatology or even in geomorphology, slope maps play important role because if you look at these particular valley glaciers and the glaciers which are mountain glaciers, which are actually will show the orientation of these surfaces with respect to north. So these valley glaciers are mainly oriented towards the northeast and east. So if you look at these two valley glaciers, why this is important? It is east to west. Okay, east to west orientation because it gives you exposure to sunlight for a longer period of time in daytime or daylight exposure, we can say. And since the exposure is for a long period of time, then the temperature of the valley will be relatively more and it will lead to melting of ice. So I'm working on this aspect of the orientation of glaciers in Himalaya, particularly east-west orientation and north-south orientation. and their melting rate of these valley glaciers. So this is one of the interesting point I would like to mention here. Orientation of the valley will also lead to change in the rate of melting of valley glaciers, particularly because mountain glaciers are always exposed to the sunlight. So that doesn't make any difference. So yes, this is about the study area. We have visited this part, and you can see morainal deposits over here, lateral moraine. Then the left side it is Satopant Glacier Valley, and right side it is Bhagirath Glacier. Very quickly, I'll show the details of this. The total area is 247 square kilometer, and maximum elevation was about 7,000. Total relief was 3,665. And orientation of valley was west-east. That's what I told you. I won't go. Data sources, basically 76, 1990, 99, and 2009 Landsat images I have used. But of course, this 76 image was a bit problematic. So I have tried to go for 1999 and 2009 images. Besides this, Cartosat-1 images are also used to identify variation in the features, particularly supraglacial lakes. These are the details of the database which we have used: specification of Landsat MSS, ETM Plus, and Cartosat Plus, Cartosat 1. It is not necessary to go for all the details, but remember that whenever you are using any remote sensing data for any kind of analysis, try to match the time period if it is temporal analysis. Basically, in such areas where the cloud cover is always a problem, and snow cover is also a problem, because it is very difficult to identify features if the area is completely snow covered. For that, you should have some ground control points in the form of GPS readings, and if you have those points, then only you can identify these features with and without snow cover. So in such areas, you have to take care of the images and the quality. There should not be snow cover and there should not be cloud cover. So there is very short, a very limited window of the time to use such kind of images, because in winter it is full of snow cover. You have and in monsoon it is full of the clouds. We have very limited period of time in which you should have good quality images. That is also one important aspect. So in Cartosat data, we have used Cartosat 1 of November 2006 and 2007 and September 2009. So using these three, we have tried to identify the movement of supraglacial lakes. So that I will talk later. Remember, these kind of details are required whenever you are going to use such data sets. You have to mention all these things in your study. This is about the recent image which I have used for this demonstration. Of course, Mr. Tushar Raut has helped me in preparing so many things about this presentation.
So, excuse me, the previous slide, please.
Yes.
Previous slide, please.
Yes. Yeah, any question?
No, I just wanted to note down the fields, that is specification, spectral band. So I have noted it down now. It's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, this kind of I don't know how many of you are working in this field, but these kind of details may vary because you are going to use different bands and different data sets. This is a very recent one for Landsat 8-9 operational land cover images. You can check these details. Operational land imager OLI and thermal infrared sensors. There are different bands for different purposes, and of course, I'm not going to add all these bands in our demo presentation. Mainly, we are going to use band 3, 4, 5, and 6, which will be used in the analysis, so that it will reduce the time of processing and type of time required for entire things. Yeah, this is for land and water analysis, band 5, 6, and 4. We can use these bands as per our requirement. Of course, nowadays ready-made data sets are available in the form of satellite data. You can use band 562 for healthy vegetation, and for agriculture to separate out, you can use 652 bands. Both the bands are same, but the combination or the sequence of the bands are different. So remember that makes the difference in the identification of vegetation. Yeah, now coming to the applications of QGIS, all of you know how to get the Landsat data. Okay. If not, it is available, but I will skip this part because I have already taken half an hour in case of setting the problem. So I'll skip this part, getting the data from the USGS in the form of Landsat. You can use any data set. I'm not suggesting you to use Landsat, but you can get ready-made data from different sources. Yeah, this is NDVI, that is vegetation index. So far, you might have heard about the vegetation index, and I'm not going to discuss that part again. So in NDVI, the important aspect is near infrared and visible rate. These two colors are two portions of the electromagnetic spectrum are very important. Near infrared is absorbed, okay, that is absorbed, and 50% is returned back or reflected back. So in case of good healthy vegetation, and in case the red band, it is only 8% that is absorbed. Okay. So in case of dry or some unhealthy plant, the proportion of near infrared and visible infrared visible rate are different. You can see in the diagram, near infrared, it is only 30% that is absorbed, and out of that 40% is reflected. In case of rate, 30% is reflected back. So the amount of reflection is more in case of rate when the vegetation is not healthy. So this kind of properties of the absorption and reflection of different bands and their, band means the electromagnetic energy that is used in different indices, including NDVI, NDSI, and NDWI. Of course, this is known to you. I'm not going to read it again. Yes. So this is NDVI, where we are going to use NIR and rate. These two bands. NIR is near infrared, and the normalized difference vegetation index is having range between -1 to +1. This might be known to you, but this is just revision. Maybe some of you have already done or taken training in the field of remote sensing and GIS. For them, this could be very basic thing, but for the benefit of all the participants, I'm going to repeat this one. So here, for Landsat 8, we are going to use band 4, that is rate, and band 5, that is near infrared. So it becomes the equation like band 5 minus band 4 divided by band 5 plus band 4. So this is again very simple, and this we are going to use in raster calculator by using these bands. For this, we have adopted different methodologies. Of course, this is from my work, but I'm just going to highlight the left part, this one, by using Landsat data. Okay, what we have done. So this is the part that I'm going to discuss right now, and some part of the movement of the glacier, that is this one, if the time permits, I will discuss with you. Now for that, we can use Cartosat data for the movement, And for the NDWI, NDVI, and NDSI, we can use Landsat MSS. You can use any set of data where you have near infrared band available in that satellite data set. Okay. So let's move to the next. Yes, these are the indices. You can note down or you can check this one. Even online, you will get the references of this. There are two NDSIs. One is for salinity index and one is for snow index. So don't make the jumbling in these two. For NDSI, we are going to use TM2 minus TM5. That is thematic mapper 2 and thematic mapper 5 bands. And for NDVI, as I told you, TM4 and TM3. These will change from different data sets. This is for thematic mapper, and in case of ETM, in case of Landsat 8 and 5, 8 and 9, it will change. Please make note of this. Take note of this. This is going to change. So you can search for bands which are used in NDSI, NDVI, and NDWI from Landsat 8. That will be better because the numbering of the bands have been changed in Landsat series, right from thematic mapper to ETM plus and Landsat 8 and 9 OLI series. Yes, this is again, these are the details of the steps or procedure we have done: data processing and analysis. Of course, georeferencing and orthorectification is required. If you have level 1 corrected image, even you have to go for orthorectification. You should have GCPs which are collected through DGPS, particularly when you are going to use Cartosat data for the movement of the glaciers. If you don't have GCPs, then it will not give you appropriate values. Of course, it will show some of the changes, but these will not be with respect to ground truthing. So terrain analysis is done. Then geomorphological mapping. I have not added this geomorphological mapping, in which I have identified erosional landforms and glacial and periglacial landforms. Of course, that was more for my study. But snout position analysis, that is done. Then snow cover dynamics through NDSI, vegetation growth dynamics through NDVI, water body dynamics through NDWI. These three I'm going to discuss here. Accumulation area ratio and paleo-environmental analysis, then movement of the glacier. These things, if time permits, then only we'll discuss. These are some of the pictures and field observations on the basis of. Yeah, this is one of the technique we can use here to identify change in the glacial valleys. Of course, this is spatial profile that you can do in GIS or even in image processing software. So here you can see the change in the valley width. Okay, so as the valley changes, you will find the differences in valley width. Okay, this one particularly near the snout, the valley is quite wide. Then as you go, this is the snout position. Okay, as you go away from the snout in downstream direction, the valley is filled with the debris, the material that is brought down by the slope movement or slope action, or even the tributaries which are joining to the valley. So to identify this variation in the valley form, what we did, it is simple, just taking the cross section near the snout, near the glacier, then slightly away from the glacier, you can see the change in valley shape. And as you go downstream, there is one stream joining. There also you'll find the change in the cross profile. Yes, further downstream towards the Badrinath, you'll find that the valley is filled by material that is brought down by the river itself and tributaries and other mass movement processes on the valley slopes. So this kind of valley in valley also present that we can identify through spatial profile. So my suggestion would be you go for spatial profile by using Cartosat or even by using spectral, by using other images, you can go for spectral profile. The application of spectral profile also we can see in subsequent slides. Here you can see the debris that is brought down by the small valley glaciers and then mass movement process. So the original valley was something like this. See here, this was something like this, but it is filled with the material now. So it has been narrowed down, something like this. So this is what I have tried to identify, because when we talk about the glacial valley, it should be box shaped, U shaped, as we study in the basics of geomorphology, right? But this is an indicator of different geomorphic processes which are taking place after the glacial valley formation. Yeah, some of the field photographs which we have done. Yes, this is again one important part. That's what I was talking about. The tributary glacier, they bring down the material from the upslope, and the valley is filled with such material. So this is the campsite. The camp was from JNU, and at the same time we were in the field. So you can see here different features just to identify from the image or from the Google Earth data. The processes here, gulling process on the lateral moraine. This is an indication of increased melting or increased availability of water, so that the water movement will cause formation of small gullies on the moraines. So this is an indication of change in processes. This is indirect evidence which we can identify from the field. This is not required actually. Let's move. This kind of material is there. This is part of lateral moraine, and you can see the valley glacier only, which is fully covered with the debris material. This is the snout position, and now what I was talking about, the vegetation, increase in vegetation. So after melting, lakes are formed at the snout. Here you can see this is the snout of Satpupan Glacier, and the lakes are formed. So this is the ice cover of the valley glacier, and you can see the thickness, maybe several meters of thickness, and below this also there will be ice. So such kind of change takes place when the ice near in the depressions, vegetation growth is seen, and if this area under vegetation has increased, that is an indicator of increase in suitable condition. That is availability of sediments, number one, availability of moisture, number two, and most important thing is suitable temperature for the growth of vegetation. Because at the higher altitude, this is one of the most important controlling factor that vegetation cannot grow because of the unsuitable or non-favorable temperature condition. If it grows, it is only for a short period of time. Okay. And this kind of growth of vegetation is an indicator of change in environmental conditions. So these are the indicators of landscape change. Yes. This is snout position. All of you are aware with the term snout position. Here I have compared two images, 1990 and 1999. For the simplification, as you can see on the left hand side, there are three boxes NCS. in both the cases. In case of North Glacier, that is Bhagirath Khadak, and southern one is Satapant Glacier. So in both the cases, I have tried to separate out this snout position because it is not linear. I mean, it is not in straight line. It is zigzag line. So maybe some part of the glacier is advancing, some is going retreating back. So to separate out, what I did, I have separated these parts in three divisions: northern, central, and southern. So northern part, central part, and southern part in both the glaciers. That is used to um, analyze or assess what happens in case of uh, three different parts of the glacier, because there are certain ground conditions which do not allow the movement of the material and say advancing of the glaciers in downslope direction. So that could be one of the reasons the glaciers do not move. So let's see what is that. This is snout position. We took the GPS and we marked these points. These are the points which we have marked on the field to know the present situation of the glaciers. Of course, this was done in 2011, almost 10 years back. The position or the condition would be different. This is the comparison of snout position in 99 and 2009. You can see the line. Blue one is for 99 and red one is for 2009. So this kind of small changes can be identified by using images. Even here we can use thermal band to know the temperature of the surface, but thermal band will be affected by the ambient temperature also. So that could be a problem you will face. So this is comparison of 90, 99 and 2009 images. So by using temporal data set, you can identify the variation in the snout position, and we can simply measure the distances between these two lines and we can find out the variation in the snout position. This is an indicator of climate change. Retreating snouts, retreating glacier is one of the important indicator. Yes, this is the overall table, advances and retreat of glacial snout. Of course, it is based on the three images, 1990, 99, and 2009. For 2019 also, I'm planning to do this, 2019. So I'll get the data of minimum 30 years. Okay. So this you can see north, central, and south parts of the glaciers. One is Bhagirath Khadak and Satapant Khadak. The colors I have just changed to separate out the columns, just to make it easy to see the details. Okay. So average change in meters per year is 2.1. It is in minus. Sometimes it is advancing, and therefore I have used minus or negative side for retreating. If it is advancing, then it is positive. So average rate is 2.1 and 6.1, 6.8. So we can see from the images itself, as compared to the northern part, this is Bhagirath Khadak. Can you see this one? This is Bhagirath Khadak. I'm writing here B. Okay, and this is Satapant. So these two, the northern one is advanced one and southern one is retreated. So this can be seen in through the analysis. The table. One is that is retreating slowly, while the southern one is retreating relatively faster, almost 3 times faster than the northern one. So this kind of analysis we can do by using simply snout position, provided you should have the GCPs, ground control points of those snouts. Simply by using the images, you cannot do. Of course, you can do, but that won't be authentic. This is snow cover mapping using NDSI. NDSI, I have told you. And blue area indicates snow, and green area indicates vegetation plus exposed surface. Of course, it is not only vegetation, remember that, but this is the area where vegetation can grow if it is not covered with the boulders and gravels. Okay. So let's see the area that is in 1990 and 99. So you can compare here. In 99, the overall area is relatively more. Of course, this is again this depends on the precipitation in that particular year. If the precipitation was more, then the snow cover area will be more. You have to be very careful while drawing any kind of inferences or any conclusion. Please note that snow cover is dynamic and it will change from year to year. Even within the season, it will change. So this is one of the indicators. If the snow cover has reduced a lot, you have to check the precipitation values in the basin. Based on that only, you can say the snow cover has reduced and it is because of increasing temperature. Yeah, this is for 2009, and we can compare the details of snow cover over the basins. Now for the snow cover analysis, I have done Satopant, Bhagirath Khada Glacier, Left Valley and Right Valley. From the previous map, you can see this is the Left Valley, the northern one, and Right Valley is the southern one. These are the small valleys which are added in the study area besides Satopant Glacier. So the total area, you can see the total area, basin-wise total area is 247.62 square kilometer. Okay, and in 1990, 99, and 2009, what was the picture that you can check? So in 90, it was 117, it became 137, and 2009, it became 106. So it reduced than 1990 condition. So 99, we can understand there could be heavy precipitation and more snowfall. So that had increased the area under snow. But in 2009, again, you can compare with 1990, the value is much more less. So hence we can say the snow cover over the period of time has been decreased. So this is one of the indicator we can use. You can this is same thing in the form of graph. I have shown here. Sites for snow cover change. Of course, this we have not taken by using the GPS, but these are identified sites which we could see through the visual interpretation, and these points are marked to check the snow cover change over the period of time. So almost 17, 18 slides, 19 sites we have identified where we found the change in snow cover over the period of time. This is NDVI map, and white area indicates vegetation cover. Now we can see, of course, everything that is seen in white is not vegetation. You have to confirm it from the true color combination or false color combination satellite image. If it is reddish in FCC, then that is vegetation cover. So from area to area, it will vary, and of course, the snow cover that is relatively brighter is different than the vegetation cover. So this you can check in the image of 1990. Particularly, I will show you. This is the area that is having snow cover. Okay, these are the snow-covered areas, but this is the area which is having high vegetation NDVI values. So brightness indicates the NDVI, right? Relatively gray areas are snow covers. Of course, NDVI we can use for water bodies also. This is NDVI map. And you can see water bodies over here, black spots. Yeah, you can see the black spots over here. Particularly, this is the concentration of. These are the supraglacial lakes. Supra means over the valley glacier. These are the supraglacial lakes, which we have identified using the topographic map also. It was surveyed in 1976, I think, and by sorry, it was 1966. By using that, we can identify number of supraglacial lakes which were present in the past and which are present now. So if the number of supraglacial lakes increase, then that is an indication of melting of valley glacier. Yes, these are the sites for vegetation cover. Some of the sites we have visited in the field, but some we have identified by using the satellite images. Yes, this is what I was talking about, spatial profile. We can use and we can see the variation in the values. So for NDVI, after getting the NDVI, we can simply put the cross profile, that is spatial profile, in ADAS or in any image processing software, and you'll get the variation in the NDVI image. So wherever there is bright area, that is having low NDVI values, because this is FCC, and you will get snow cover brighter and vegetation cover is dark red. Okay, so wherever there are dark red areas, I have shown here, you can see the arrow, the vegetation NDVI value is higher. Okay, so this is point between 0 to 0.25, then 0.50 and 1. So in valley areas, NDVI values are more, and in mountain areas, what you can say, the mountain glaciers, where the NDVI values are less. You will get NDVI values for all the areas. It is not like that only for vegetation you will get, but the vegetation area will have higher NDVI values. Sorry, this is increment in NDVI. You can check the number of values, how the values are changing over the period of time. So this is 2009. NDVI values are increasing as compared to 99 and 1990. This is what I was talking about. I use this topographic map to mark the supraglacial lakes. You can see here this one, and at the end of this snout, I've shown in the picture there is no lake, but in picture in the field we have seen at the end of the mouth over here there was a lake. So that is new development after melting. So these are small lakes which are seen on both the valley glaciers. Which we have marked by using satellite data. So distribution of supraglacial lakes, this is 2009. So we can you can see the lakes which are on the valley glacier, but there are other lakes which are on the sides of the valley glacier. These are the Moraine Dam lakes. This is one, this is identified. This is called Satopant Lake. There you can go, you can do the trekking, you can stay there and come back. But that is not the livable shelter. Okay, the shelter is not livable. So it's better you take your tents and go there. So these are the moraine dammed. This is this one and this one, moraine dammed lakes, which are not the supraglacial lakes. Supraglacial lakes are over the valley glacier. So if you can compare this one with the previous number of the lakes from the topographic map, of course, here you have the limitation of scale. The topographic map is with the scale of 1:50,000. And here you have to adjust the scale of the image. Then only you can compare, because we can zoom the satellite data as much as possible up to the pixel level, but the topographic map, even after zooming, you will not get the details. It will be the same. It will not change. So you have to take care of such kind of things. And we have compared in NDVI values observed in lakes. That is also one important index which we can use for the water bodies. If you check NDVI for the water bodies, you'll get the lower values. So in 2009, the values have increased even over the water bodies. So this is an indication of muddy water. Glacial parameters, I will not go for this. I'll skip for time being because we have to discuss other things. So this is, yes, by using DAME, Cartosat DAME, we have seen that one of the supraglacial lake in 2006, it has been shifted. You can see very light color since it is overlapped, and you will see the change in the reflectance value also. I mean, the not reflectance in case of DAME, it is the gray tone that is different in 2009. So 2006 to 2009, you'll see the difference over here. This particular part, yes, this one. This I have marked. Okay, this one here. So this has been shifted, and that we have measured by the scale, that is 34.88 meters. Okay, 34.88 meters over the period of 3 years. Yes, this one, this is different one again. This is 10 meter, and maybe it is not visible very clearly in this case. So this is in 1 year, 2007 and 2006. Okay, so in 1 year, it has shifted to 10 meters. By considering the root mean square error, RMSE, that is 0.53 pixel and 0.23 pixel. That also we have to consider, because this error is important when you are talking in terms of meter and sub-meter level changes. Okay. Yes, this is what the, okay, I'll skip this one. But these are the techniques which we have used. Already I have told you. Yes, now demarcation of study area by using Google Earth. Simply you can demarcate, go for polygon and demarcate the study area. You can use Google Earth, different options in Google Earth, and simply demarcate it, change the directions, and accordingly you will be able to do best possible demarcation. So this is what I did just to show you. I have marked the glacial area. I can zoom it as much as possible, and I can demarcate with the help of polygon drawing, and then it can be exported in the form of .kml or .knz file. Yes, this is QGIS interface. So far you have used QGIS interface. I'm not going to discuss that. Now let's talk about the NDVI. It is band 5 minus band 4 divided by band 5 plus band 4. This is one sample image I have taken. Of course, Tushar helped me. You can do drag and drop from the browser. Browse option is there on the left hand side, and simply drag it on the canvas so that you can see all those bands. This is same thing. Yeah, now you can start by selecting raster calculator. Please note this, what you have to do, because you have to do on your own also. By selecting raster calculator, you have to check the options in the raster option in the main menu. Okay, all of you are aware with the interface by this time. You can check raster and then raster calculator. After clicking raster calculator, you will have the bands which we are going to use for the NDVI. Okay, you'll get such kind of window where you'll get the available bands. Okay, then by using the output location layer, you have to give the file name and simply go for the NDVI formula. In case of NDVI formula, what do you have to do? We have seen that band 5 minus band 4. Just I'm going to revise it. Please check this band 5 minus band 4. So what I'll do, simply I'll click here from the available bands. If I have selected only 2 bands, then 2 bands will be seen. If I have selected entire image with multiple bands, then I have to select appropriate band. So simply calculate by using the formula, double click the band, then go for minus sign, complete the bracket, and then division, and again same thing, band 5 plus band 4. Okay, so this will give you the result in the form of NDVI. I don't know, the image is not that clear, but you'll get the output layer as NDVI. Okay, so NDVI will be in grayscale. After that, we can classify it as per our requirement. If you have to do only vegetation area and only non-vegetated area, then you can separate out these only by classifying binary classes. Binary classes is 0, 1, okay, or you can say less than a certain value and more than certain value. So you can make 2 classes, and accordingly you'll get the vegetation area and non-vegetated area. You can check the properties, change the properties, and go for classification of this. By this time, you know the properties, symbology, and how to get different colors, classification, right? If not, you will learn in future, but remember this step. You have to simply right click and go for properties, go for symbology, and change the classes. Same thing I have explained here. You can go to symbology and select the color format. If you would like to show it in multiple colors, you can choose the multiple colors, color option, or palette of different colors, or you can use the single color RAM. It depends what kind of details you would like to show in the final map. Yes, that's what I have mentioned here. Select suitable colors, and then finally you'll get the NDVI in this way. Okay, you can see the previous map, this one and this one. So I got water bodies, I got land surface without vegetation, I got vegetation with very dense area, and vegetation with sparse area with the sparse vegetation. So such kind of variation I can get in the color image. So we can also do use NDWI to extract the water bodies. Okay. So these are some of the examples. Here you have to use green band minus NIR band. So you have to consider green band. You have to add different layers, raster layers, including green and NIR. Already we have done red and NIR. So in case of NDWI, you have to take green band. So if you add green band in the initial phase, you can simply select green band from the options. Then again, you can go for the NDWI, same procedure you have to do. And here you can see very clearly all the water bodies. You can see the extent of water bodies. Same thing I have done to mark the supraglacial lakes on the valley glaciers. Yes, this is already I have explained. Similar to NDVI, you can go for NDWI. Yeah, here you'll get the output NDWI classification. Then snow index. So NDSI, NIR minus SWIR. For Landsat 5, it is band 4 minus band 5. And Landsat 8, it is band 5 minus band 6. So remember, this is what I told you. It will vary from Landsat, the versions of Landsat data. Yeah, same thing you can do. Using a raster calculator, you can check the bands. Simply double click and go for the formula and run. That is the option. Then you will get the output. So NDSI is the output, or here you are getting. You can see here the snow area, that is mountain area, which is permanently having snow cover, can be seen. And the output I have shown you earlier also in my research work or study. Green and blue, right? Here we have used green and white. So snow cover area can be seen in white. And on the basis of the raster calculator, by using raster calculator, you can find out the total area under snow cover, which was there in the, say, 1990, 99, and 2009, and of course 2019 or 20. So decadal variation you can check. Remember, I told you snow is very dynamic. It depends directly on the amount of precipitation, how much was the snowfall. I'm using the word snowfall, and how long the snow retained there, and when what is the period when I have taken this particular image, whether there was snow cover or it was melted. If I take the image of late summer, then obviously I will get late snow cover. So you have to maintain the period also while selecting the data, particularly for snow cover. If it is say the month of May, so you have to maintain the month of May every time, or June every time. So these are the outputs: NDWI, NDVI, and NDSI. Now we can compare here NDVI and NDSI. Particularly, this is the area where you got maximum snow cover. Here also you got maximum snow cover. Okay, these are the ranges. Now, if you look at the same area over here, is having minimum NDVI and here also you have minimum NDVI, something like this, right? On the contrary, in the valleys, the NDVI values are more. Here NDSI is less, and here NDVI is more. You can compare the bright part. So such kind of comparison is possible, and we can cross-check things, whether we got appropriate results or not. But for that, you should know the study area very well. If you are not aware, then simply running these indices will be a technical work. Okay. Yes, this is the output again in the color format. Make sure that the when you are using NDWI, of course, any index will give you result, any kind of result, but water bodies are seen very sharply in NDVI as well as in NDWI in both the cases. So we can compare these two also for water bodies. Yes, for clipping the study area from process data. Suppose I have done all these kind of analysis on the original image. You can clip it later by using shapefile, or you can go reverse also. First you prepare the shapefile, then clip it, and then by using the shapefile, you can reduce the study area. Sometimes it makes a problem, so you have to go in 2 steps to clip the area. For example, in raster you have the option to extraction. I'm so sorry, extraction, and first you have to go for extraction by extent, raster by extent, clip raster by extent, and then clip raster by mask. So these 2 steps you have to follow, and then you'll get the desired output. So this is the interface of QGIS. You can check these options right now if it is available with you, and then you start clipping this. Okay, you can decide any area from the study area of your own, or for the today's demo you can also take the same data and you can check the study area. You can randomly draw the study area. It is not necessary that you should take the same one, but make sure that the study area, if you are going to calculate it, it should be basin wise, because administrative areas will not help you to understand the precipitation and the movement of the glaciers and the dynamics of the glaciers. It should be basin wise. Okay. So this is how you can extract or clip the desired details of the study area. Yes. How to do it? This is given in short. Suppose I have to clip NDSI, then the input layer is NDSI, and I will use the study area, that is Badrinath area, from the layer, that is clipping extent. Okay, so we should go for calculate from layer, and the layer should be study area. So this is Badrinath area I have given. You can give the study area. That is KML. That if it is saved, KML I have told you how to get. You can get it from Google Earth directly, and that can be used. So this is step 1. Step 2 is the same thing. Here you can go for raster by extent. You have to you have to give the file name, and then that will be used as a input. This file name will be used as an input for raster by mask. So this is raster by extent, the first step. Okay, then the file name you have to give for the output, And this is the second step. This output you'll get, and now this is the final step. Clip raster by mask. Same procedure you have to follow. And you'll get the final output like this. So on the basis of this, you can go for calculation of area. And finally, you will be able to find out area under snow, area without snow as an output. Yes, this is one. This is by using different shapefile. This can be done roughly, very quickly. You can use the shapefile in Google Earth and clip the area which is required. And then you can process this band by band also. But remember that every band should be clipped. Then only you will get the values like NDVI, NDSI. Or what do? You process the entire image and then clip the area required. Anything, whatever you would like to do. It takes more or less same time. So this is you can use this one for the preparation of the map. I don't know, something has happened. Yes. Preparation of the map layout. By this time you might have studied. You can enter the details of the map like legend and scale bar, north arrow and grid. Okay, so map name and all the things can be done, right? This you know by this time. This is layout. Okay, you can change all these details in item properties. Please make sure to check the scale before you go for final map, because in QGIS, giving the scale is one of the important tasks. In ArcGIS, it is easy. It is automatically updated. If you are changing the scale in QGIS, you have to make sure what kind of changes you have made. And while displaying the scale bar, you have to check the fractions in RF or the scale in meters and kilometers units. You have to check. If it is not appropriate, make sure to change the fractions in the scale option. Okay, so that is always a problem in QGIS. Maybe in new versions they might have changed, but last year when I used this, there was a problem with the scale on the layout. So this is NDSI map. Yes, the work was carried out by me and my supervisors, Dr. P.K. Champatre, late Dr. P.K. Champatre in IARS, and Dr. Ajanta Goswami from IIT. He is now in IIT. So I acknowledge their support and cooperation in this particular work. Besides this, if you have any question or something you would like to do, we can discuss it quickly in few minutes. I think it is yeah, there are 8 minutes.
Yes, sir. Even you can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes also you can take.
Yeah. If there is a question or something like.
Actually, sir, sir had planned to demonstrate and give hands-on. Okay, but due to the technical difficulties, we were late in starting the session. Okay.
Yeah, no, we can start, no problem. For me, there is no problem. I'll go step by step with the same slides. We can use. I'll go back.
A rapid something you can just.
Yeah. Same. Whether they have done any calculation of NDVI or NDSI.
Participants, you are doing simultaneously, then you can share your difficulties or anything if you had a face problem. That is also possible.
Sir, is it online, going on online?
Yes, yes, it is online.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
So by
Sir,
this
if
time, all of
possible-
you might have QGIS they have used, maybe indices they have done. Have you done any index calculation?
Participants,
Yeah, please respond. At least you say.
this session is now open for discussion, and if there is any technical lacunas remain in between the presentation or something where you didn't understand, so you can ask sir, so he will try to explain it. He has actually gone step by step in this entire presentation. I was observing it. So where to click, how to click, what is the thing, and how output you will get. And I have recorded the session, so you will be getting the same thing.
Sir, sir, hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if possible, please try to share this PPT. It will be very much helpful.
We have recording of this. I will be putting on Google Classroom.
Yes, that will be better because sharing PPT
Okay.
again, maybe I don't know what is the policy for this particular course.
If you share PPT, then there is no harm, sir. We'll
Okay.
welcome you. Okay. If any copyright or some ongoing research work is there, then you just permit us to use the video.
Yeah, you can use video. There is no question. Absolutely no problem.
Your PPT, you just allow.
I don't have any copyright issue, but we are working on it. So that is the issue.
Okay. So with your permission, I will be putting this on this video, whatever I recorded, on our Google Classroom, and then participants can use it.
No problem. No problem. Anytime.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for allowing us to put this on our online platform. Okay. Any other question, dear participants?
Yeah, you can watch the video and you can go step by step. Of course, these things are available online also. I will suggest by using the data, you can simply try to clip the area, study area, or you can use your own study area simply by following the steps. Then you can process this data for NDVI, NDSI. It is very simple. I told you in, yeah. Still, I think my presentation is still visible, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can minimize it.
Yeah, the formulae I have given already. These are the formulae for NDSI, for example. Same is the case of NDVI and NDWI. Make sure to change the band numbers and the same bands you have to import or you have to open in raster. Okay, and simply use the raster calculator. The option is there. Yeah, I'll use the first one, which is better. Yes, this one. Okay, raster calculator. From the raster option, the first is raster calculator. Yeah, if okay, if the QGIS is open, I can share it. Now I'm resharing it. Okay, I'm resharing the QGIS directly. Yes, this is the GIS right now. Okay. Hello.
Screen is come, sir.
Yeah. Now, can you see? I'm showing you what you have to do.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
These are now options available in raster, raster calculator. Okay. Now, in raster calculator, what you see, the bands which are available in the browser are seen in the left window. Okay, like you have NDSI, which already we have done. Then you have band 3, band 4, band 5, and band 6, right? These are available. Okay. Now, for example, if I have to do NDVI, then what I'll do, I'll simply use the formula NDVI band 5 double click, but there should not be space. Okay. Remember that there should not be space. Yeah. Band 5. Now minus. Yes, minus band 4. Double click and then close it by braces, then divided by same thing again, band 5 plus, this time it is plus band 4. Okay, and then close the braces. Before we go for run option, it will not come. You have to give the output. Okay, the output is, yeah, I can save it like NDVI. So this is second one. So NDVI2. This is the file name I have given. Is it visible to you? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Visible.
Yeah, so it is NDVI2. So I'll say save. And then you have option of OK. Now it is processing, right? 32%, almost 40% now. Yeah, I'll just check. So this is NDVI2. Entire image is there, right? Zoom to layer. Okay, this is NDVI2. On the left hand side in the browser layers, you can see NDVI2. And now I am going to change the properties. Right click properties and symbology. Okay, band 1 gray, color ramp I can select. Maybe anyone you can select, reds or greens. Greens I'll select greens. Okay. Oh, where it is? Is the same? No, no. No, there's some problem. Indicate. No, but this is the procedure. Okay. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear. Sir, if possible,
Yes.
can you show us the clipping process?
Yeah, it is possible. Yes.
Okay.
What we'll do? Okay, I'll go in. I'll just remove this. Okay, I'll take new project. I'll take the new project, entirely new project, right? Now I'll go in raster. Oh, sorry, layer. You have to add the layers. Layer, add layer. So it is raster. Add raster layer from the I'll just check. Okay. Anyone you can any band you can take. Okay, band, there are different bands, band 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So any band you can take. You can take multiple bands also. So there is some issue with the could you see this? The bands have appeared on the left hand side. Okay, in the left,
Yes,
which
yes.
I have opened, and the bands are seen here, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Now we'll go to raster. The extraction by extent raster. Before that, we have to add the vector layer. Okay, layer, but that should be there, otherwise it will not open. So vector layer, I check the vector data set. That should be shape file. Okay. No, I think it is Badrinath layer. No. Yeah, by mistake I did something. Is reshift file. Okay. Glacier shape I'll check. For example, it is .shp add. Okay, I got glacier shape. So this is the shape file. Yeah, you can see here. Are you able to see this particular shape file? This is the study area, and
Yes,
now I can change the properties of this. It is very simple. Color, there should not be no color. Yeah, outline also we can directly. So I have applied it and said, okay. So it is changed, right? You can see it now. Right now, then I'll go by raster extraction, extract by extent. First, you have to do extract by extent. Then ultimately the input layer will be any one of the bands. Let's say band 4. Okay. Then clipping extent, calculate from the layer. And this calculate from the layer is glacier. Already we have done. We have these layers, glacier as well as the raster layers. Glacier is vector layer and 2 raster layers. And the output you have to give. Save to file, because this will require, this is extracted file, so I'll give the name extent. Okay, extent 1. So extent 1 is my file, that will be output. And yeah, run. Okay, the task is complete, and I got here extent 1. Now I'm, yes. Now I got this extent 1, right? This is the file, this is first step. And again, you have to do the second step by using raster extraction clip raster by mask. Now automatically it takes the input layer as extent 1, because we have done the extent extraction. Now it will take the available vector file and then source CRS and target CRS. That is not required, since it is optional. It will take automatically. Here you have to go for the output. Output also you can do, right? simply I'll run. Output file you can give. Save to file. I'll say study area 1. Study area 1. This is extent 1 and this is study area 1. Okay, so this is study area 1. Yeah, this is extended, and there is one more option that is in properties. You can go properties and transparency option is there. If you go for 0, okay.
Okay.
Now I got the same thing. Whatever the study area was there, you can see. Right, this is I have extracted or clicked from the large image data set. You can do this one for the entire image also, but you have to build the pyramid of the entire image. If you have to open the all bands in raster option. Okay.
Okay, clear, sir. Clear. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir.
Is it clear to you now?
Yes, sir.
So any question
Clear.
or something you would like to know?
No, sir. So we have to make a proper shapefile first, then we can do it properly.
Yeah, obviously, it is not again necessary you go for proper shapefile. You can take any random shape also, like you can take the square extent of lat longs.
Yes, yes.
As your for the practice purpose,
Yes,
purpose. If you are doing your PhD research work, you can
yes, then we definitely have to
prepare the
shapefile.
KML file or shape file from the Google Earth,
Okay, okay.
or you can take it from the topographic map if you have digitized topographic map. Okay.
Okay, okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any question?
Okay, I think you may be having many questions in your mind, and now you might have got some new ideas to conduct research in different areas than the traditional one. So I request all participants to go through the contact detail of Dr. S.T. Pardeshi that already I have kept it on our Google Classroom. Plus, you can visit Pune University website. There his complete profile with his publication is available. And on WhatsApp, our WhatsApp group, I can share his contact number also.
Yes, no problem. At any point of time.
Yes, sir. So I take opportunity to propose vote of thanks of this session. So myself, Dr. Sanjay Gaikwad, as a coordinator of this FDP, I'm thankful to Dr. S.D. Pardeshi sir for giving his valuable time, being busy with his conference at their end also. And initially we had some schedule related confusion also. So allowing me to do that, all these things, and he agreed whatever I proposed. Okay, finally he agreed and he delivered very nicely in a detail and step by step.
I hope I could convey the things, whatever, I don't know how far it was.
Yes, sir. It was
That feedback is always welcome.
Yes, sir. It was very, very much clear and understandable. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your feedback. So that I can improve. If you have any negative remarks also, there is no problem. It is always welcome.
okay. So the participants, you can post your doubts, queries on our chat box or on my WhatsApp also. Okay. So with these few words, I thanks to Dr. S.T. Pardeshi sir on behalf of our department, my faculty members, Department of Geography of Chogle College, AICT Atal Academy of Government of India. I thanks to Dr. Pardeshi sir. Thanks
Yes,
for
sir.
giving your time.
Yeah, before we end, thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Gaikwad, because there were certain problems and we overcome these problems. And thank you, the authorities of Chaugule College and Department of Geography, Chaugule College, for giving me this chance to interact with the participants. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you one and all. Dear participants, we are having next session. Sir, you can stop presentation from your side.
Yes, yes.